welcome to the very first episode of Spotlight. I'm going to be your host, Hailey Still. Some of you may know me from our REMAX European conventions where I've presented, the elite meetings where I've also hosted, or you might have seen me at some of your local events, such as regional conventions as well. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Hailey, and I am the REMAX Europe Trainer, and I'm going to be your host for the Spotlight series. I think most of us are probably already very comfortable with Zoom and with virtual meetings and virtual trainings. But I just want to let you know, if you are looking for the Italian translation, we do have that available for you all today. So you can just go ahead and navigate down to the bottom of your device where you're participating today and just select the Italian translation channel and you can hear Ariella, our lovely Italian translator. Thank you, Ariella, for everything that you do. And yeah, so what can you expect for this session and for Spotlight? Well, Spotlight is our new dynamic training show. My colleague Will came up with the idea that it's training and it's entertainment. It's entertainment. So that's what it's going to be about in these shows. They're going to be quarterly. So we're going to be focusing on innovation topics that will help you improve your business and that are key in order to navigate today's market. So we're going to learn innovation topics and more importantly, how you can take these tools and then put the theory into practice. So that's what you can expect from the Spotlight series as a whole. We're going to be hearing from top performing real estate agents, brokers from our European network here across the continent, as well as our friends over in North America. And you can also expect to hear top real estate coaches and trainers share their insight and expertise on our episode focus topic, which brings us to our focus topic for our very first launch episode. Obviously, 2020 has been a year of change for everyone. And so we thought it fitting for our very first episode, as the year comes to a close, we reflect back and think a little bit about what 2020 has taught us. In order to do that, I wanted to hear from as many voices as I could from our top performers across Europe. So we sent word out to our top performers and asked them, what lessons have you learned in 2020 and how did you implement them so that you could continue to grow your business even though this year was known for its market disruptions? Because, as I'm sure you know, a lot of our network members were able to grow, even despite everything that was going on in the global market. So we wanted to hear from them. And we asked them a few questions, their key lessons learned from 2020. And if there's anything they could do differently, what would that have been? And we were blown away by the responses. So thank you to all of our top performers who participated by sending us your key lessons learned. After analyzing all of those videos, we found key 3 lessons that our top performers identified as their sort of game-changing ideas or strategies that they implemented in 2020 that enabled them to continue to grow their business. So for the first part of our episode today, we're going to be hearing from our top performers, learning a little bit about their key lessons learned. Then in the second part of this session, we're going to hear from top real estate coach Kathleen Black, where we're going to be learning about how to take those ideas and create systems around them. So that way you can really take these ideas home and implement them right away and work them into your 2021 business plans. So lesson number 1 from our top performers. Some of you might have guessed it already, but actually the very first lesson that we learned from our top performers was that in order to continue to grow in 2020, they needed to adapt to the changes that were impacting them, their communities, and their business. So we're going to play a short video for you now, a compilation of the first lesson learned, and then I'll see you back in around 2 minutes. Play video.
Ciao a tutti, Simone Rossi, Remax Italia.
Hi, my name is Angela. Hello from Bulgaria.
Hey, good morning. This is Elori from Luxembourg. Sinem Özüçler, Remax Ahenk, İstanbul, Türkiye'den.
Hi everyone, it's Philippine Corvaya from Remax Specialist Moda.
La lección más valiosa que yo he aprendido a lo largo del 2020 ha sido la resiliencia, porque a ser resiliente se aprende. Ante una situación de incertidumbre, de desconocimiento, una situación totalmente nueva, tú puedes tener dos alternativas. Una de ellas es dejarte llevar por el fatalismo, quedarte paralizada, no hacer absolutamente nada, a ver qué ocurre con tu negocio, o bien, de una manera positiva, adaptarte a la nueva situación. Eso fue lo que yo hice.
Mart 2020 itibariyle hayatlarımız değişti ve değişmeye devam ediyor. Aile hayatımız, iş hayatımız, eğlence hayatımız, her şey. Bir girişimci olarak da değişen bu dünyaya işimi nasıl adapte edeceğim, cevap bulmam gereken soruların başında geliyordu. 10 gün düşündüm, plan yaptım ve her zaman yaptığım gibi eyleme geçtim.
Najcenniejsza dla mnie lekcja z tego roku to wiara we własne możliwości. To umiejętność doprowadzania do końca sytuacji trudnych, czasami wręcz niemożliwych. To umiejętność działania w stresie, to umiejętność opanowania emocji moich klientów.
One of the best lessons in 2020 is that we help our agents to understand that they need to adapt to this crisis and to evolve. So we give them a lot of training so that they can start learning new things, new tricks, new IT trends. You know, those kind of things that you know that you need to start doing but you never do? Well, it was exactly those things that we pushed them to start doing and the results were really, really good.
Ne mutlu ki öyle bir işimiz var ki her dönemde, her krizde, her şartta hareket edebiliyor. Yeter ki biz doğru zamanda, doğru yerdeki doğru insan olalım. Dünyanın her yerinde istek ya da ihtiyacından dolayı yeni bir mülk alan ve mülkünü satan birileri var.
This is the situation that we're in. There are real opportunities here, and we can change gear, and we can be the ones who are out there and doing business when everybody else thinks that it's impossible. And that's what we did. And that worked very well for us.
Aproveché todos esos momentos para formarme, pero sobre todo para conocer herramientas y aprender herramientas nuevas que me permitiesen comunicar con mis clientes, que para mí son lo más importante. Así que para mí el 2020 realmente ha sido un año de oportunidades.
So don't give up at any time. Face new challenges and accept them as new possibilities.
E una sorta di analogia, la nostra vita è sostanzialmente come un croupier. Ogni giorno ci vengono date le carte e ogni giorno noi dobbiamo cercare di fare il nostro meglio con quello che abbiamo. E la cosa speciale è che noi e solo noi siamo la soluzione. La cosa interessantissima che ho scoperto però è che in ogni situazione della vita, come in ogni giocata, c'è sempre quella vincente a nostra portata.
So you heard it right from our top performers. We know that high performance and consistent results are the product of strong systems and consistency and running your business like a business, not just a hobby. But what do you do when your system gets thrown on its head because of a global market disruption? You adapt. And that's exactly what our top performers from across Europe did. They took a look around and thought, okay, my systems that I have been relying on to help me achieve consistent growth have been turned upside down, and I need to take action. I need to create a new plan. I need to adapt to the current market conditions and what I see around me. They were open to adapting. They were open to change. They were willing to rise to the challenge and not willing to back down and say, oh, I'm just paralyzed. They were willing to really step up and adapt where they thought it was necessary. So I think that was the first key lesson that we really saw across every single video from the top performers that we received. So I think if there's one key thing to take away, it would be that you should be open to trying new things, which brings us actually to our second lesson that we learned from our top performers, which was the role that technology played in helping them grow in 2020. So let's hear what our top performers have to say about technology.
aklımla Mart 2020'ye dönseydim neleri farklı yapardım? Tabii ki ilk olarak dijital dünyaya daha fazla yatırım yapar, dijital dünyada daha çok yer alırdım. Ve bu konuda da gayrimenkul danışmanlarımı daha fazla yönlendirirdim.
Προκειμένου να μπορέσουμε να προσαρμοστούμε σε αυτά τα νέα δεδομένα της κτηματαγοράς, μαζί με την ομάδα μου σχεδιάσαμε κάποιες συγκεκριμένες στρατηγικές το 2020. Δώσαμε ιδιαίτερο βάρος στο digital marketing της ομάδας μας. Προσπαθήσαμε να βελτιστοποιήσουμε τους λογαριασμούς μας σε όλα τα social media, στο Facebook, στο LinkedIn, στο Twitter και στο Instagram, καθώς επίσης προσπαθήσαμε μέσα από το YouTube και από πληρωμένες διαφημίσεις να προωθήσουμε το branding της εταιρείας μας και τα ακίνητα που διαθέτουμε στο χαρτοφυλάκιό μας.
Y otra de las cosas que sin duda haría es, por muchos referidos que tengamos, nunca abandonar la prospección activa, porque es la base de nuestro negocio. Y nuestro negocio no puede depender de otros, siempre tiene que depender de nosotros.
Hi Remax friends, 2 questions. First one, what was the most important lesson in 2020 that helped you to grow up? Most important was that I should still keep growing up in the social media, making more video marketings and marketing in the internet. I should keep it. Why? Because it helps me to stay in contact with my clients.
Βελτιστοποιήσαμε τις υπηρεσίες μας προς τους αγοραστές και τους πολιτές. Προσπαθήσαμε με την λήψη βίντεο, με την 360 Virtual Tour, με λήψη drone και με λήψεις επαγγελματικών φωτογραφιών, να δώσουμε μια αίσθηση υπεροχής των ακινήτων που έχουμε στο χαρτοφυλάκιό μας έναντι του ανταγωνισμού.
Ho scoperto che per fare bene questo lavoro oggi bisogna diventare cintura nera di competenze, per cui non bastano più le competenze di vendita che sono un requisito minimo per fare questo lavoro bene oggi, ma bisogna aggiungere competenze di marketing, web marketing, tecnologia e sicurezza.
Gdybym ponownie zaczynała rok 2020, to na pewno zadbałabym o to, by każda oferta nieruchomości, którą mam na sprzedaż, od początku zawierała bogatą dokumentację fotograficzną, wirtualny spacer, przygotowane rzuty nieruchomości, czy też zdjęcia z drona pokazujące doskonale lokalizację. Nie bałabym się też od razu umawiać z klientami na rozmowy na Zoomie czy na Skype'ie. Wtedy, kiedy spotkania byłyby ograniczone osobiście, działałabym z tym, co mam, nie zwlekając.
We always knew that technology such as virtual tours, drone videos, and e-signatures was going to be impacting our industry at some point in the future. But 2020 showed us that we can no longer decide if we want to use technology. In the new normal, using these kinds of tools and technology needs to become a requirement if you want to continue to grow in this industry. As our top performers said, one of the things that they wish that they had done sooner is having more listing videos, having more virtual tours, because that would have set them that little bit ahead of the competitors when the global pandemic started sweeping across Europe. And I know some of you might be thinking, yeah, well, once everything settles down and we're able to get buyers physically into properties again, I probably don't need to use virtual tours as much or rely so much on high quality visuals because people can get back in physically and see the properties the way we used to. And I would challenge you on that point because I actually think that these kinds of tools and technology are going to stick around even after we're not socially distant anymore. The main reason why is because it's a great customer experience for our buyers to be able to hop online and look around a few different properties all within the span of 10 or 15 minutes. This is a feature and this is an experience that they were searching for. They might not have known it yet, but now that they've had a taste of it, they're definitely not going to want to go back. So if you haven't investigated and starting to put the gears in place to start using these types of technologies, I would really encourage you to do so because these tools are going to definitely stick around well into the future, 2021 and beyond. For our third lesson that we learned from our top performers, it actually had to do with the support that they received from our network. And that is one of the amazing things about belonging to a large global network like Remax is in times of crisis and situations, you have the entire support of the network behind you. And that really played a critical role in helping our top performers continue to grow in 2020 because they didn't have to create everything from scratch. Their broker owners, their colleagues, their regions, and even Remax Europe were all by their side, helping to provide them with new trainings, new tools, and everything that they needed to know in order to continue to do business as the market was changing around them. So they just needed to inform themselves and keep reading and keep learning, going back to lesson number 1, and make sure that they really utilized the strength of the Remax network in order to help support them through this really challenging year. So let's go ahead and play the video and see what our top performers had to say about the role that the Remax network had in terms of supporting them.
Również dla mnie ważną lekcją z tego roku jest to, że pracuję w świetnym zespole. Zespół Remax Duo, w którym jestem, to grupa ludzi, która się wzajemnie wspiera i gdyby nie oni, wiele rzeczy byłoby trudne do realizacji. W zespole łatwiej przedyskutować problematyczne sytuacje, w zespole łatwiej się motywować i wspólnie działać, by odnosić sukcesy.
And during this crazy year, I can say again thank you to all my friends from Remax and from Remax Europe office. That we always say that we are in family, but this year, especially in this very tough moment and difficult situation, can very say thank you for all the support. We said in Portugal, Lisbon, at the Remax convention 2 years ago that we are a game changer. But we can see this year that with all the new process we put on and the support we get together to share experience and to give motivation to everyone, and it was something like very important for me.
But thanks to the support we all got from Remax Bulgaria and Remax Europe during the first pandemic wave, I learned a good few lessons.
Being a great team player is essential. I try my best to be supportive, to inspire, to motivate, because ultimately we need to continue working hard until we achieve our goals, no matter what, without giving up.
Dilerim ki 2021 yılı 2020 yılında öncelikle daha sağlıklı, hepimiz için daha mutlu ve umut dolu bir yıl olsun.
Be yourself, love your job, love what you do, and take care of yourself.
Hope you enjoyed the Spotlight series and hope to see you very soon in real.
Να είστε όλοι καλά.
Ciao a tutti ragazzi.
Thank you.
So as you see, we gathered a lot of really amazing input from our top performers, and those 3 lessons are definitely ones to take home and consider. How have you been reacting? Have you been open to taking on the challenge and learning new things and really getting your head in the right space to step up given the challenging circumstances? Have you embraced the role that technology is playing in today's market and started maybe shooting a few videos, maybe trying out some Facebook ads or Instagram ads? And have you really investigated the support that the network has in your region, or the support that your broker owner might be offering? I'm really impressed with the results that we received from our top performers and all of the input that they gave us. So if any of you guys are watching, and I think you are, thank you so much for your valuable insight and sharing that with the rest of us. For the second part of our Spotlight episode, we're actually going to be hearing from a top performing real estate coach, Kathleen Black. She works in the Toronto real estate market and actually started off her career as a real estate agent herself, quickly rising to the top 1% of the very competitive Toronto real estate market. Kathleen, are you with us?
Hi, good morning, Hailey. Yes, I'm here. I was going to say I'm with us. I'm here.
Beautiful. Well, we are so happy to have you speaking with us here today. For those of you who don't know, Kathleen, it's morning time for her. As we know, and here in Europe, it is afternoon for most of us. So thank you, Kathleen, for taking your time this morning to speak to us, our network in Remax Europe. Kathleen is going to be talking to us a little bit about how we can take what we just learned from our top performers and make sure that we can implement those ideas and create systems around them. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the rest to Kathleen, and then you'll see me again at the end. If we do have time for questions, you can write your questions in the chat. If we have some time, maybe we can ask some questions. But until then, I'll leave the stage over to Kathleen.
Thank you, Hailey. And thank you for having me, Remax Europe. And thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to say this morning for me, but this afternoon for you. I've loved spending time with this network. I know the amazing energy and passion that all of you bring to the industry. Every time I've been on this platform, I've seen that very clearly. And I just want to kind of remind, a couple of things when we're trying to get momentum going forward, because, top 1%, they look to have momentum, but they look to have it directed, right? Versus the 98 or 99% are looking to get into action. They're looking to get into momentum, and they're very different focuses. So often we're talking about, how do we move forward, and how do we have strong goals, and how do we take, action right away, which I think is very important. But, a lot of us came into 2020 expecting this 2020 vision, right? I don't know if you guys remember, you probably do, that all over social media, all of our business planning, it was this idea of 2020 vision. And one thing that we know, as some of you in Europe are industry icons. I work with industry icons in North America. And what we know is that vision going forward is never 2020. It never is. So I think it's kind of interesting that we have this opportunity now to look back on 2020 in retrospect. And that's where we'll get that actual clarity, that actual vision. So with the top 1% mentality, we're taking action, but it's directed, it's strategic, it's focused. And there's some things I want to share today that we want to do before we move into, locking in our systems for next year in 2021 that I think are very, very crucial and very important. I know how important it is as a person who sets big goals and wants to achieve things. I know how important it is to get into the right mentality. And I'm going to share a little example for you of something that happened to me a couple of weeks ago that brought back to mind just how important it is for us as top achievers, as top 1% producers, or those who would like to be in a mindful place as in how we approach our business. So I've written a couple of books now. I just finished my second one, and I've worked with a coach, a mentor, to do that because, like you, my business is very busy. So I'm more than happy to put some money and time on the line to make sure that my goals get done. I went to watch a video from my mentor, and I started to look at the video, and my mind started to kind of go sideways. My mind looked at it and said, wow, this video seems a little bit older, or, the technology doesn't seem as great as I thought it would be. Meanwhile, my mentor has helped, an incredible number of people not only write books, but create best-selling books, which my first book was. And so I started to listen to this information about writing my second book, and I noticed something. I noticed that my ego was really loud. My ego was saying, this is older content, and shouldn't she have updated this? And, maybe I shouldn't even watch this video. I probably watched it before. Do I really need to learn this information again? And there's a quote that I love so much, and I'm not going to say it perfectly right now because I didn't write it down, but it's that, a man never steps in the river the same way twice. I'm not the same man, and the river is not the same as it once was. And I think it's really, really powerful that everything in top 1% is about mastery. It's about revisiting the basics again and again and again until we're so strong that we're revisiting the basics to stay at that level. We never hear about an elite athlete or an elite performer that gets onto, a professional sports team and then they stop practicing. And yet here I was, a person who runs a very successful coaching company who helps, massive leaders in the industry. And what was I doing? I was taking myself out of the game by telling myself that I didn't need to hear this and I didn't need to learn it. Luckily, I've done a lot of work with mindfulness, which I'm going to talk to you guys about today, because it's one of the most important things to be able to take the lessons from 2020 and apply them going forward to 2021. So what happened was I called myself out. And I said, really? You're focusing right now on the quality of the video or the age of the video, when the reality is, thank goodness my mentor knew this 10 years ago, because I didn't know it 10 years ago, and I didn't even know it 2 years ago. And whose responsibility is it to show up and to learn and be focused on the knowledge I need to get ahead? It's mine. So I 100% right in that moment took a pause and reflected and said, what am I focused on right now? You're either focused on learning and being a leader, or you're focused on what's happening to you that's not going to help you. We only ever get what we expect. So we can move forward into 2021 and we can expect amazing things. But if we don't look back on 2020, on the things that, maybe took us out of the game, on the things that hurt our hearts, right? The things that maybe didn't deliver the way that we expected them to, we're never going to be able to thrive the way we could going forward in the next year. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just that mindful reflection. And I think it's so important to just take that slow time, because when we don't slow down, we don't have the same time to look back and gain the knowledge, right? Gain the knowledge from the past so we can take it into the future. So I'm sure everybody has a pen and paper, and you're going to want to, because I'm going to take you through a few things. But some of the areas that we want to make sure that we take some time for mindfulness and we look back, I'm going to list them for you. But direction always precedes movement, right? Direction always precedes movement. So where am I trying to go? Is my direction going to work for me? Did my direction work for me in 2020? And is it going to work, going forward into 2021? So one area that you want to look mindfully is your perfect week. Do you have a perfect week? Systems are just a strategy. Systems are a set of habits. Systems are minimum standards, right? Structure gives us freedom. So one of the most important things that we can do, I'm a big believer in visualization. I believe in visualizing before I go to a listing presentation, visualizing before I call past clients. I want to set the state inside my body that's going to connect and provide powerful energy to whoever I talk to. Because how do we make money? With value exchange. So if my energy is low, I'm not going to be able to bring value to those people's lives where they feel good. So I'm a big believer in visualization. Where it can go wrong is where we set these beautiful vision boards, which, don't get me wrong, I personally don't do vision boards because I do letters from the future, which are a little bit more detailed. So one of the great ways to start is writing a letter to yourself 1 year from today. So it would be December 9th, 2021. And I'd write a letter back to myself of everything that came to pass in my world, right? Everything that was great. I'd include all the obstacles I overcame. I'd include any new habits I want to put in place, any difficult conversations that I was brave enough to have, any changes I was brave enough to make, and how I showed up confidently in my business. I'd include all of those things. I'd include the relationships with my children, if you have a spouse or if you're dating, whatever your life looks like, whatever your family looks like, we would include that in the letter. The key is once we have that letter locked in, then we want to take it to a place of values, right? Who are we? What's important to us? Then we take it to the goals. What are our business goals? What are our personal goals? Once we've done that, that's when we get into the left brain analytical. And the left brain analytical is saying, okay, I have this beautiful vision. I have this beautiful dream of my 2021. But now what do I need to do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly in order to be on track for that? This is the really powerful part of the process that a lot of people miss if they just do vision boards. Vision boards are not enough. We need a strategy that works. So when you're being mindful of 2020, I recommend that you look and you say, did I have a perfect week? Did I have something to anchor me that said when I needed to show up to make phone calls, when I was going to make videos, how often I would make those videos, whether I had a new listing or not? Did I have a structure to follow? Because here's what happens. If you have that structure and you don't show up to do prospecting or you don't show up to do the video, you consciously now know that you're actually sabotaging your own goals. And that's a really powerful thing to know. People look at my schedule like, Kathleen, oh my goodness, like, how do you stay so structured? Like I had a movie director yesterday because he's working on a documentary and he saw my schedule because we had to book something. And he's like, oh my gosh, like right away, he just went like this, like he had this visceral reaction to it. And I said, yeah, but I set my goals. I set my vision. So I'm empowered by that schedule because that's my recipe for success. Why would I mess with my own recipe for success? Why would I do that? Whereas sometimes when we're not sure, or we're hesitating, we might think that setting a structured schedule is actually stressful, right? But what we know about all top performers is that there's eustress and there's distress, and they're not the same thing. If you have your big dream, your big vision, and you put yourself into a strategy to get there, there's going to be some pressure, right? There's going to be some stress, but that's healthy stress if you align it to a dream that's important to you, right? Maybe a lifestyle for yourself and your family, more time with your children, more financial security, whatever that's going to look like for you next year. That type of stress is what all top achievers and top performers thrive with. The stress that's bad for us, that comes from external pressure, right? That comes from quotas and pressure. Yesterday, I talked to a gentleman. He reached out to me, and I try to tell stories because I think it's important, right, for us all to relate. But a gentleman reached out to me, and he had a really hard year this year. It wasn't a great year for him. I mean, I feel emotional just talking about it, but he had a really hard year. He's in real estate. He had to borrow a lot of money to get through his year. And as I talked to him, I heard the strain and the pressure in his voice when he said to me, Kathleen, like, I don't know how to pay my mortgage. My kids have activities. I don't know what to do. And there was this huge weight, right? So much pressure put on himself externally that he was almost just like bound and not able to act and move. So our entire call, he thought I'd be working just on strategy with him, which I did, but almost our entire call was on mindfulness. Almost our entire call was on, can you call yourself out when you're focused on what's holding you back today and force your mind to focus on where you're going? Can you do that? Because the mental edge of that will catapult you forward every single time. So I'm going to say it again. Can you force yourself mentally to focus on where you're going and what you're building, despite what's going on around you now? Despite what's happening. If you can do that, you have this edge to be able to pivot and change so quickly in your business and in your life, right? And in years like 2020, that was so valuable for us. So I really felt amiss to start with anything other than mindfulness, right? Like, I know what it feels like to sell a lot of real estate and have little kids. I know what it feels like to go from having a breadwinner spouse to being the breadwinner instantly and being a brand new agent. And those were really, really hard years. And everything that felt like would bring me success was staying in that fast lane, right? Doing more deals, focusing ahead, don't look back. But eventually it cost me because I had to look back at ways to be more efficient, more strategic, more systematic. I couldn't afford not to do that. And mindfulness allowed me to see my weaknesses and make sure your weaknesses are not outperforming your strengths. Any system will be sabotaged without mindfulness, without a healthy mindset, right? So I'm going to give you the rest of the list because I said have a pen and paper, and then I told you guys a couple of stories because I think it's easier to relate sometimes, to real stories happening right now. So some of the things we want to be mindful with. Number one, perfect week. Again, it is so empowering to get up in the morning and know exactly what you're going to do. Right? I woke up this morning. I know I've got like 10 different things booked today. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to do today. I know what I need to be prepared for. I know what I need to be prepared for tomorrow. It is a myth that we cannot structure our lives in real estate. It's an absolute myth. Certainty creates action. When you're certain about what you need to do, it is 10 times easier to do it. It's not by accident that people who have a plan are more productive. Okay. So we always see, the best brokers, the top team leaders, the top producers, those people who are taking action and get things done, they all have goals. They all have a plan in one way or another. Right. So we want to look at our perfect week. Number one. Number two, and our perfect week, should be that dream put down to metrics and habits and key activities that we need to do daily, weekly, or monthly. Number two, we want to have mindfulness around cost versus investment. Not everything is a cost and not everything is an investment. And if we have mindfulness around this in our business, we will start to look for systems. And systems are really important because they give us that ability to multiply our business, right? So if I'm conscious and mindful about what is a cost versus what is an investment, I'm going to start to ask other questions, right? I'm going to get really curious in my business. I'm going to say, wait a minute, I invested, $25,000 last year into Facebook social media leads. Was this an investment for me or was it a cost? Is there little key areas that I could tweak to make it a more powerful investment for me? Is this part of my strategy going ahead for next year? These are all things that there's a beautiful progression that comes when we start to get really curious about these things. Source of business. I know it seems, when I say it, it seems really obvious, right? Source of business. I have to say, I work with like 80% of the people we work with are top 1% producers, right? They're selling a lot of real estate. The percentage of people that I start to work with and know the source of business is very, very low. And this is really shocking, because if we don't look back on 2020 and say, where did our business actually come from? How do we decide where to put our money to make sure it's an investment? How do we decide where to put our time, right? Maybe we really loved, door knocking prior to 2020, right? When things changed. Maybe we really loved open houses. So we're going into 2021 and we're saying, I really hope the restrictions are lifted. I really hope I can door knock. I really hope I can do open houses. But based on where we're at in the world right now, that's going to sabotage our results. Looking at source of business for 2020, and if you had a hard year, go to mentors. Go to other people in your brokerage, right? Talk to other broker owners. Where were they having success with source of business? And plan your strategy around something that's working in 2020 that you can take into 2021. We can only work with the environment that we have right now. Conversion and skill set. It is something to be very mindful about, right? You can be making videos, purchasing leads, and you can have one person who's converting at double than another. Let's get really mindful about what we could achieve. Let's invest in baseline so we can say, hey, how many appointments should I be booking from a lead coming from, Google versus a lead coming from social media? How am I going to engage with these people? Do I have a client process? So I'm always saying yes and giving options. Even in COVID, we can say yes and give options. If somebody wants to see a house, we can have a great way of communicating where we can offer them a next step to get educated as a buyer. So where other agents are pulling back and just saying, no, I can't do this, depending on their circumstances, we're saying yes with options. That made or broke businesses in North America for real estate. The ability to just move forward with new options that people can engage in. And finally, my last one on the list for mindfulness, and then we'll move forward, is where do I need to show the love? I really like this one, right? We get business back in areas that we show love to, right? Energy flows where focus goes. Where if I showed more love, right? And for me, love is strong. Love is fierce. Love is honest, right? Love is that, hey, if I'm going to be of service to myself and in my business, I'm going to do what needs to be done. So love could be, hey, where do I need to show more love when it comes to my skill set or my training or my mindset? It could also be, where in my database do I need to show more love? Right? When you show love to people, they feel the appreciation and they send love right back. It's not, a plant doesn't grow from a seed out of nowhere, right? It has to have sunlight. It has to have water. It needs to have nutrients. And our business is the exact same way. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It comes from where we nurture it into being. So where can we show love to nurture and create and kind of birth the aspects of our business that we want to bring to like success and fruition, right? We're all able to do that. So the first part was mindfulness, right? Top 1% are focused on strategic action and momentum, directed action and momentum. They're not focused on just, try something and throw it against the wall. They want to make sure if something's working, hold on to it. I talked to a team a couple of weeks ago and we were chatting and they had an amazing campaign going. We've worked with them for a long time and they have lots of listings, but their goal was buyers. So they were signing 2 new buyer agreements every single week. So 2 loyal buyers working with them with the marketing campaign. They decided that they wanted to start a new marketing campaign that was going to be focused more on luxury. Now, the mistake they made was that they stopped and paused the marketing campaign that was working in order to test the new one. Now, here we are 5 or 6 months later. They didn't bring this to talk to us about it. We had no idea. I went on a strategy call with them. I said, what's going on? Like, where's the results? What's happening, right? Like asking curious questions. And they said, well, we wanted to try something new, so we put that on pause. And I listened, I said, you had something working in your business. And I'm sure they were worried about the budget, but they took an investment and they put it on pause to test something that in the end didn't work for them, right? So really important that we're being kind of mindful about, let's hold on to what's working and cultivate a strategy out of it. The second thing I want to talk about is what I call the double bind, right? In yoga, double bind can be, when we're kind of like contorted into these positions, and it's very restrictive physically, but we're actually rinsing energy, right? We call it rinsing. You want to rinse out, any toxins in your muscles, things like that. So you can be stronger, so you can show up more pure, more directed, right? More fierce. And double binds are really important to us when we're looking at 2020 into 2021. And here's why. So 2 days ago, I was talking to a team. The team leader is an incredible producer. Like when I'm talking about industry icon, like they've created new awards for her. Like she's next level. She's phenomenal. One of the people on their team approached them and was saying, what is the team bringing me, right? Same thing as saying, what is the brokerage doing for me? And this agent's been struggling, right? 2020 has been a hard year for this particular agent, not everyone on the team, but this agent. So the team, was talking to me about how can we support this agent and what strategy can we put in place. And so we went into, how can we serve as leaders and be of highest service to this agent? Because the director of sales, which is a leadership person on the team, kind of said, yeah, but, I don't want to be too bossy and I don't want to tell them what to do. And, I don't want to step on their feet. And I said, you have somebody struggling here and you have the path for success, but they don't know what that path is. They're trying to reach a goal and they need the direction. They need the map. They need the route. As leaders, the most important thing we can do is show up always to be of service, both to our buyers and our sellers and to the agents around us if you have a team or a brokerage. So we talked about, how we needed to show up and be more specific and more certain so we could help this agent know exactly what to do so that he could step into his power and his personal responsibility to build the business he was capable of having, to build the life he was capable of having. Because if she showed up and she was more focused on, does this agent like me? Do they think I'm mean? She wasn't going to be able to be of service and help that agent reach their goals. Her being unsure about how to create direction was actually going to cause compromised results for him. But here's the other side of the double bind and why I'm telling you this story. We also always have to flip it and go, wait a minute, what does this have to do with me? Right? What does this have to do with us? Is there some truth to this? Is there ways that we could improve, as leaders? If we have a client who's frustrated and saying, what did you do for me? Why did I pay you that commission? Is it important for us to make sure we can clarify our value, but also reflect back, have that mindfulness again and say, you know what? The world's trying to get my attention here. The world's knocking on my door and it's sending it by way of a complaint or a frustration or an obstacle or something painful, right? But if we can actually reflect and go, what does this have to do with me? How could I use this information to make my life, my business, myself as a person better? That's where we can turn the most painful moments into something that's purposeful. And we can take all that energy of anything difficult that happened in 2020, and we can store it all up and we can use it to make ourselves better. That's what all leaders do. Instead of taking that energy and going down, we're going to take that energy and we're going to use it to catapult ourselves forward. We're going to say, thank you. Thank you for that client who complained. Thank you for that tough month when I really struggled, because you know what? I learned where I needed to improve. I got a hint of where I could be better, and I invested in my business to get myself there. So the double bind is a couple of questions. One is, what am I responsible for? These are simple, but they're really powerful. Okay. So if you're going through something that you're frustrated or you're reflecting on 2020, these 3 questions can really help. What am I responsible for? And I'm going to segue quicker into the next part, which will help. Number 2, what could I choose to change to be of higher service? What could I choose to change to show up in a greater level of love, of leadership, of service, right? What do I have the option to improve in myself right now? And finally, I already said this one, but what does this have to do with me, right? Is this a pattern that keeps showing up in my business? You want to clear these things out. You want to push yourself in that double bind where you're like, you know what? I want to get clarity on how I'm showing up in my business, because I don't want to show up in 2021 and run the same patterns, the same strategies, hit the same setbacks that I did in 2020. I want to learn from those. So maybe I'll have new setbacks, but I won't be running a pattern that doesn't work for me. which the third thing I wanted to talk about quickly is fierce self-leadership. And I'm just going to show everybody, oh, I can't share, so that's okay. I was going to show you a picture of a lotus flower. And if you know the lotus flower, you know that the lotus flower takes all the nutrients in the muck and mud at the bottom of like pretty much, you know, areas that are not clean, beautiful water, right? Like it looks like quicksand, it's like mucky areas. And those flowers take all of those nutrients and they use it to create the most beautiful blooms. My daughter painted me a picture of a lotus flower, and she put a poem on it about people who are able to take all the muck and the murk and the difficulties of this world and turn it into something beautiful. And that's what all people who have strategy and systems and leadership, that's what we all do. And what does it require? It requires fierce self-leadership, fierce self-leadership. Before I ever try to lead anyone else, the most important thing I want to do is lead myself. Right? So move the locus of control into the place where we have the most power to create change. So if I wanted to move the locus of control in my life to a place where I have the most power to create the changes I want in my life, and I stop fighting for all the excuses or limitations, I stopped fighting for all the reasons why it couldn't work. And I said, I'm going to be 100% committed to what I want to build in 2021. That's all I'm going to focus on. So if I wanted to be in a position where I had the most control and power and clarity and certainty to build exactly what I want, where would I move that locus of control? Where would I need to stand in order to have all that power? Whose leadership is most vitally important to me? At the end of the day, it's myself, right? I need to move the locus of control to myself. So what is fierce self-leadership? It's fierce 100% personal responsibility. Anytime something happens in life, it's the ability to say, this isn't happening to me. This is happening for me, which as we know is not my quote, but it's a great one. This is not happening to me. This is happening for me. So how can I take this information and solve this problem in my life or my business? I'm a big believer scaling businesses comes down to a couple of really important things, but one of them is this. Once I hit a breaking point and something is frustrating me in my business, I will only solve that problem once. I am not going to solve it 20 times or 100 times or 150 times, right? I'm not going to have a listing where, you know, I constantly cut my commission to the point where I'm barely making any money. I'm going to let that frustrate me once, and then I'm going to change my approach. I'm going to change my system. So I might have new problems, but I'm not going to solve the same problems again and again and again. That's a simple way of looking at the difference between a top 1% producer and the 98 or 99%. The 98 or 99% are doing the same things again and again and again, and they're trying to work harder to create the results. The top 1% is taking that problem and they're creating a solution out of it that they can use every single time going forward. And then they're going to create more solutions, and more solutions. So they're imminently more powerful, because they're creating systems around how they do business that deliver them a predictable result. So fierce self-leadership. And I wanted to give you guys a formula that I work with a lot, and I recommend that you write it down. It's very, very powerful. So if you're trying to support, you know, your kids, yourself, someone in your brokerage, a team, even a client, this is really, really powerful to know. So the equation is E plus R equals O. E plus R equals O. So if we're looking back on 2020 and we're looking on the things that frustrated us, or we're trying to build a better 2021 ahead, we can look at it and say E is an event. It's a person, a place, it's a thing, it's a situation, right? It's an event. R is one of two things. It's either our reaction or it's our response, okay? And O is the outcome. Every powerful negotiator, powerful leader, anybody powerfully scaling a business, they have capacity, right? They have the capacity to be in really stressful situations and not break a sweat. They have the capacity to have chaos going on behind the scenes and still walk their way forward, leading others through a storm, because they know something better is ahead. They have vision. And how do they do that? They have the ability to train their mind to focus on the outcome they want. Here's the thing. If I have an event, person, place, or thing, I can react to it. I can get upset. I can get frustrated, or I can say, what's the best possible outcome here? You know, the seller is frustrated with me and I really like this person. I really want to protect them. I really want to be of service to them. I really want to educate them and support them. So even though they're upset with me, I could react and say, don't you see how hard I'm working for you? Or I could say, what's my outcome before I ever respond? What's my outcome? Well, it's to have that great relationship. So I'm going to be really calm. I'm going to tell them my intention is to make sure I'm taking care of you guys and that I'm here for you and that I'm communicating. That's extremely important to me. So let's talk about what's going on. And I'm going to stay calm no matter what, because my outcome is a good relationship. So it doesn't matter what they say or how frustrated they are. This is going to give you an incredible amount of edge and power, an incredible amount of edge and power. Because again, I'm going back to what I talked about with the gentleman yesterday. If you can focus on the outcome of where you're going relentlessly, you are going to respond in a way that keeps your energy moving forward, that keeps you building the things that are most important to you and your life and your relationships. How much energy is left by the time you even show up at business, right? For a lot of people, it's low. They've woken up, they've had families, they've driven, people to school, depending where you are in the world right now. They have all sorts of different things. They have kids at home while they're working. Their energy stores are low before they're even showing up at the business. So what do we need to do? We need to preserve it. And we preserve it by being responsive instead of reactive. So finally, I think key thing going into 2021 is number one, always start with dreaming, right? I'm a big believer in dreams. I've got big dreams and my whole life, people have told me I'll never be able to achieve them. And so far, I've achieved every single dream I've ever had, except for the new ones, obviously. But dream big. Write yourself a letter, dream that you're already achieving it. But once you do, don't stop there. Top 1%, now build it. Build the strategy, build the daily plan, build the weekly plan. Stop for mindfulness, daily, weekly, monthly, so you can course correct as quick as possible. I call it a bounce back rate. Again, I need my capacity to be really big in this world. So if something bad happens, my bounce back is super fast. And what does that mean? It means I can internalize it. I can get the lesson. I can forgive myself and I can move on, right? Bounce back rate really quick. So dream it, build it, and then really important, enjoy it, right? Celebrate. If you had a great year in 2020, celebrate, give yourself a pat on the back, take some time to really look back and see how much you achieved, because it'll power you into 2021 to remind you of just how much you guys are capable of. And we are immensely capable of more than we ever know. That's always been my experience with every single human I've ever had the joy of working with. We aren't seeing how much we're capable of. It's not that we're shooting too far here. It's that we don't even know what we're capable of until we show up and we really lean into it with all our might and see how far we can get with it. So systems are important, strategies are important, but really you got to have the dream that you believe in to get you to show up and energize it into creation. So that is what I wanted to share with all of you today. And it has been such a gift to be here with all of you. And I'm just watching for Hailey to come back up. But again, let's be like the lotus flower, right? Anything that's being thrown at us, let's take that and use it to our advantage. And I think we all have that ability right now.
I do want to say thank you so much for your incredible wisdom that you shared with us, your strategies and your tools that we can use to really take charge of the future that we want to create for ourselves in the rest of 2020 and moving forward into 2021. Incredibly inspirational. It definitely struck a few chords with me on a personal level. So I wanted to thank you again so much. I would encourage those of you, if you do have any lingering questions, you can reach out to Kathleen. She's on social media, she's on Instagram, or if you can't find her for whatever reason, you can always reach out to me. I'm also on Instagram or Remax Europe, and we'll put you in touch with her and her amazing network over in Canada. I do want to thank all of you who are still hanging out with us for joining us in our very first Spotlight session. And thank you, Kathleen, once again for being our very first guest speaker for our new training series. I guess I'll let you all go and you can enjoy the rest of your morning. Thank you all for attending. Our next Spotlight series will be coming out probably mid-February, so you can be sure to stay tuned on our social media channels for the next special guest and our next Spotlight series, and the very first one for 2021. And I hope that all of you have a safe and healthy and happy end of 2020.